Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Friends List. I'm Russ Frushtick here as your host, and I am joined today by a very special guest, Colin Campbell. Thank you for joining us, Colin.
Thank you for having me.
So Colin, the topic today, initially we were going to talk about some elements of Batman Arkham Knight, and we're still going to do that, but we should also address the surprise that we got today that the game has actually been delayed to 2015. So first of all, gasp. Batman Arkham Knight is delayed till 2015, bummer. And then we're going to talk about some interesting gameplay elements that you are personally familiar with. So first off, have you heard anything? Any reason why it would be delayed apart from like, hey, need some more polish?
Yeah, they didn't even go that far. They just made a statement saying, sorry, it's going to be delayed. We want it to be as good as it can be. When I spoke to the developers, they talked a lot about scale, about the size of the world.
Sure.
And the fact that the Batmobile is going to be able to roar around Gotham City. That presumably has all sorts of elements of extra work and assets that need to be created. So I don't think anybody who was there at the announcement was at all surprised to learn that the game has been delayed. The question is, I suppose, when in 2015? You know, it's a whole year. Are they talking about late 2015 or early? We don't know.
Sure. It feels very much like the Watch Dogs delay, which is to say, like, coming up. It wasn't obviously as late as the Watch Dogs delay came in, but both being open world games, you can sense that, like, you know, this might have been a situation where they just realized they were coming in very hot and weren't confident in the product. Because really, this is, in terms of Warner Brothers, this is one of their biggest properties they have, and they know they need to get it right. They can't sort of do another mistake with the franchise, which I think a lot of people viewed the last installment as sort of a step down for the franchise. This time around, I think they really want to get it right.
Yeah, and I think Rocksteady have done a superb job with the two games that they did before.
Yeah.
And they will have had the right to turn around to Warner Brothers and say, look, we need more time with this. We want to get it right. We don't want to be coming out there with 85% scores. We want the 90s and the 95% that we've been used to. And not only that, but for these hardware platforms, it's a big game. A lot of people
Sure.
will be playing this.
Yeah, and you look at, you know, it's also coming to current gen platforms, so the challenge of doing multi-plat across everything, there's a lot of room to screw up. Like, you can definitely miss a step here and there.
Yeah, and I think some of the criticisms of the previous games was that there was a too much linearity and not enough freedom of movement. You look at games like Watch Dogs, where you're allowed much more the ability to just roam around, and they've got to be able to react to that. People don't want to feel as if they're being kind of forced down corridors all the time.
Sure. Now, Colin, I'm curious. So, what you've played through all of the Batman games? Pretty much, how familiar are you with them?
I played Arkham City, but I didn't play Asylum.
Got it. So with Arkham City, obviously, I personally consider Arkham City my favorite in the series, so that's a good place to start. How do you think they're going to keep this model that they created fresh? Obviously, we've seen pictures of the Batmobile. We know it's in the game. How much does that really change the way the game is played?
I think what they've done is they've kept the core mechanic, which is crawling around, surprising some people from above or from below or from the side or wherever, and then going into these combat routines, and interspersing that with exploration and puzzles. That's all stayed exactly the same, and they've polished that and brought it up to date. How they're keeping it fresh is down to, as you say, the Batmobile, the gadgets that are at your disposal, and also the elements, the puzzle elements, the combat elements that brings. It's like playing with an extra character. And we saw a tiny amount of the Batmobile at work, where it's fighting against these other drones. It's a first-person shooter section of the game, but we also saw it operating as a combat partner, where Batman is going around fighting people and it's there intimidating other players, and also as a first-person shooter, where the Batmobile is rolling around and strafing and dodging bullets and fighting. So there is that element of diversity in terms of mechanics that they've always embraced. They've always tried to kind of put you into this compendium of game types and give you lots of different things to do that reflect Batman's powers and abilities.
Sure. I'm wondering, you know, one of the special things about Arkham City was, you know, the creation of this city and how well it was designed and how many nods there were to fans and certain characters and the artwork and the building design, stuff like that. given the fact that these games have to be set literally in Gotham City every single time, do you think there's a lot of room to sort of innovate on that world design?
I asked the developers this question because the section that we played in was an old chemical factory,
Sure.
very very gothic in terms of its architecture, and the great iron bridges in the background that you would expect to see. So it felt extremely familiar. And I said, doesn't this get a bit boring sometimes? And he said, look, this is going to be a huge game. There are lots of different sections. There's much more areas to explore. So that gothic look, which underpins Gotham, it isn't the only thing that you'll get to see. The kind of the dark nights, the neon lights, the drizzle. I'm hoping that there's more to it than that.
Sure. Another thing that I think Rocksteady's done extremely well, with those first two games was storytelling and writing. Do you get the impression that that's still a big priority this time around?
Yeah, I think they've done a brilliant job with writing these characters, with writing Batman, and with giving this I think a difficult character to write. Lots of good lines against a variety of villains and bad guys. We don't know much about the story in this game, particularly as it pertains to the eponymous character, the Arkham Knight. He seems to come from South America. He's got at his disposal an army and a grudge. But apart from that, there's not much known, and he's working alongside the Scarecrow, who has this dastardly plan to smother the Eastern Seaboard with some chemical gas.
Sure, which is sort of his MO.
Right,
that's what he does.
But one of the things that Rocksteady have done brilliantly has been designing the world, designing the gameplay, and also I think the writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the Scarecrow. I know a lot of people from the first game remember a lot of like really interesting, weird moments with the Scarecrow. Is that something they're talking about at all? How that's going to work?
No, they didn't really talk about the plot or anything like that at all. So we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps there'll be more information about that at E3.
Sure.
Their big focus right now is the car. That's what they want to talk about, and I'm not surprised. It looks lovely. It's a beautiful thing. And ever since I've been a child, without being a huge Batman fan, I've always enjoyed the Batmobile as just the central part of his world.
It is a little kind of comical to view it as like a partner, which certainly it is. Like Batman and the car work together, but it's so huge that like thinking of it, almost like Navi from Zelda floating around helping you. It's kind of like a weird twist on that like buddy mechanic in a lot of video games.
Yeah, I mean it's like a boat following you around,
right?
And they've when we were inside the factory fighting against these goons, clearly the factory's been designed to accommodate. I suppose most factories are, but to accommodate this massive car, which in reality I imagine it's got like the turning circle of the Titanic, although in this game it turns on a dime.
Sure. If I recall, I think it was Batman Returns, it has some sort of grappling hook that can latch on to, light posts to make those crazy turns.
Yeah,
that might be how they explain it.
It has the grappling hook, and they use that in one of the puzzles that we played, so that Batman and the Batmobile were both working together to solve a puzzle. So it's got all sorts of stuff coming out of it, which will be revealed, and also it's got a lot of weapons. It's got cannons, machine guns, riot suppression stuff, all that.
So I'm going to close out today by let's see if we can't guess who the Arkham Knight is. Do you have any theories?
I've seen a lot of theories. I would not like to try.
Really, you don't want to guess?
No, I don't. Some people are saying the Joker, which seems insane, given that he's dead. But who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking too. Even though I thought like the Joker dying in the last one was such an epic, like insane moment, and to like walk it back seems really unfortunate and kind of a bummer. I feel like it needs to be a known character. You can't just like rip off the mask and be like, "Oh, here's Joe, who you've never met."
Yeah, some random dude from Venezuela. Not that wouldn't be good.
So it needs to be someone. I don't know. They could start pulling from the rest of the DC universe. As a way to sort of introduce new characters to video game people, introduce new franchises, stuff like that. I think it'll be sort of the crux of the game's story is like who this person is, and that's cool. Like having that mystery, because I think a lot of games sort of lack those twists to keep you going through the story. The gameplay will be good, but the story is sort of shirked off. But yeah, Rocksteady has always made that a big priority.
Yeah, and revenge is a huge part of the whole Batman thing. It's 75 years old. It's not getting boring. We still like revenge. We like the idea of it, and it's interesting to have the villain and the hero both motivated by basically the same emotion.
Okay, bold statement here. I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think that this is true, but why not? Superman. Maybe it's Superman in there. Wouldn't that be interesting? Maybe he's brainwashed and that's why he's a jerk.
That's a bold prediction. Certainly.
I'll go with that. Colin, thank you so much for joining us on Friends List. And everyone watching at home, we will be here every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern, dealing with the latest and greatest in video games. So be sure to tune back soon. Adios.